The government of the Indian capital, Delhi, is installing CCTV cameras in school classrooms. It says it is to keep students safe. That reasoning born out of a series of sexual assaults and rapes against students in schools. Some perpetrated by senior school students themselves, some by school employees, and others by outsiders. More than 1,000 schools run by the Delhi government are to be covered by the scheme. But it's dividing opinion across the board, as DW correspondent Adil Bhatt reports.
This government school in Delhi became one of the first schools to install CCTV cameras in its classrooms and public areas. Every day, hundreds of students here are constantly under surveillance, with each moment of their day being filmed. From the comfort of his office, Principal Rakesh Daya can monitor everything happening at his school. He says that camera footage allows him to quickly tackle problems like bullying and petty crime.
Something is there, okay, a warning system, you can say. There's some students, if they have some kind of prank or something, so they are also just having the idea, okay, you are being watched, everything is being recorded. So that adds to that discipline quotient.
But many of the students feel uncomfortable at being under the gaze of the almost 200 cameras in the building.
I think no student would want to be watched by cameras in the classroom. And I'm sure if you were a student, you wouldn't want that either.
So far, cameras have been installed in over 500 schools across the state. Concerned with the growing number of cameras, the Delhi Parents Association has taken the state government to court. Today, Parents Association head Aparajita Gautam and her team are meeting their lawyer to discuss the case. They are preparing for a hearing in the coming week. Aparajita says that live streaming in the schools jeopardizes the safety and security of young girls and could lead to digital voyeurism.
From the perspective of parents, I think nobody has the right to see if my child or daughter is studying or not studying in the classroom. Not even parents have that right. I see this move by the Delhi government as encouraging a culture of live stalking.
The Internet Freedom Foundation, an organization that defends privacy rights and online freedom, is also critical of the mass surveillance.
This constant surveillance of children also has a negative impact on their social development. So what is happening essentially is that surveillance of children is being increased in the name of making them more secure. They're not getting more secure. Instead, they are now being harmed.
As increased security at the cost of privacy is hotly disputed around the world, India continues to rise up the list of countries who watch their citizens more closely. The debate in Delhi is whether school classrooms should be the focus of such surveillance. Many parents and students think not.
And joining me now for more context is Dr. Sangeeta Mahapatra from GIGA, that's the German Institute for Global and Area Studies. And part of Dr. Mahapatra's research looks at the impact of digital surveillance on civil liberties. Dr. Mahapatra, welcome. What does the research say? Does camera surveillance in classrooms keep students safe?
Thank you for having me here. It is very different because I have been studying schools in Delhi, in Calcutta, in Bangalore. So while CCTV cameras are becoming standard practice, there is no standardization of best practices. However, in the schools that I have been to, and these are mostly city-based schools, there have been the bullying come down to an extent in the schools that I have gone to and interacted with parents, with faculty members, with students themselves. So when it comes to bullying incidents, yes, to an extent, CCTV cameras have reduced these incidents of stalking, of harassment, of bullying. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of my assumptions also challenged when I did field work in these, because I assumed that students would try to change their behavior when it comes to the cameras inside classrooms. However, after a point of time, I saw that they got used to it and they were not that aware of the cameras being there, which was quite revelatory of the kind of internalization of the surveillance mechanisms that is happening.
So just based on what you're saying, the Delhi government would appear to have the correct argument that they are keeping children safe by installing CCTV cameras in Delhi government schools. Is that correct?
I would like to give it a kind of a caveat here, because what's important is that you have a reasonable expectation of privacy. That is, that you cannot come and put cameras inside restrooms or in certain areas that they consider to be really private. And here, this has to align with the purpose for which the data is being collected, as well as the processes in place to prevent the misuse of data. And this varies from school to school. I go back to my point about standardization of practices. While some schools have put in place robust mechanisms where data cannot be misused, some schools haven't. There hasn't been that sensitization where it comes to how do you handle that data? For how long do you handle that data?
Right.
Who has access to it? For how long is it stored? All these questions are very important when it comes to especially children, when their data has to be handled with extra care and there has to be extra due diligence here.
Right.
So yes, parents are very happy with the decision of the government. That majority of the parents that I spoke to, for them it was a confidence building measure with schools during orientation when they had these parent council meetings.
Going back to the point of purpose and process and the digital data protections in India, would you say that the way digital data is handled and the protections around that differ in India to the way they are handled potentially in the West, particularly the sensitization around that?
By West, also there is difference. Like in Germany, it is pretty good, the standard, because GDPR rules are there, and there is also the EU rules when it comes to the fundamental rights of digital data protection. But in India, it is lax. The current Digital Personal Data Protection Act bill, which is in its third variant, till now it hasn't been passed. And it gives carte blanche to the government. There are a lot of wide exemptions and there are real privacy concerns. That's the first problem. We don't have a data protection bill act in place. Second concern is we don't have a statutory body of data protection where people can raise concerns, seek redressal. So that isn't there. So it's pretty lax, the Data Protection Act. But this is at the macro level. What I would like to stress here is that when it comes to schools, that's at the micro level and where they deal with parents, and parents are pretty vocal about their children's protection, at least now. And mind you, let me put in one information here that CCTV cameras have become a standard practice across India from 2017 onwards. For the past 6 years, I have been seeing this in Bangalore, in Telangana, in Calcutta, in Mumbai. Recently in Mumbai, all the 65,000 civic and private schools have brought in CCTV cameras. So these are also there, but the concomitant data protection measures, those have not been in place. So again, I stress that some schools do good work. They have these control rooms where very few people have access to the data feed, while some schools just put it in a reception area where anyone can see what is happening in the CCTV cameras. So it's not standardized.
Let's look at the Sorry to interrupt you. Let's just look at the non-digital side of this argument, because the government's claim continues to be, look, we want to keep students safe, therefore we need to have CCTV cameras. And based on some of the experiences that you have had, it seems to be working, at least in some schools. Let's look at the other side of it. Is this also a case of the government washing its hands of its own responsibility to ensure that school employees protect children?
This is actually a very good question, because this also differs from state to state. Like in Delhi government, one of their flagship areas is education and health. And here there is this consultation constantly happening between the government officials and schools about, especially the schools that are getting government support. So here the government cannot wash off its hands of security of children when it comes to this place, because the schools are accountable to the government, and the government is ultimately accountable to the voters, the parents. So in these areas they don't. Private schools here anyway have some amount of autonomy when it comes to safety of children, but here too one sees, for example, in Kolkata, for example, we see that the municipal corporation is talking to these schools and trying to install CCTV cameras outside the premises to prevent incidences of violence, of crime. Especially they started with schools which are only girls schools or co-educational institutions. So we see mixed picture from state to state. So I don't think we can have a very simple answer here too.
Certainly a very different school time to the time that I was in school, which was many years ago. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Sangeeta Mahapatra, for that context. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.